Emmerdale for Friday the 11th of July reveals the village's peace is about to be shaken once again as secrets, betrayals and buried truths begin to emerge surrounding one of its most formidable residents. Home Farm's hard-nosed matriarch, Kim Tate, finds herself entangled in a web of deception more dangerous than anything she's ever faced before, not from a business rival or a family feud, but from a man whose charming exterior hides something much darker. It all begins subtly. Kim, notorious for her steely demeanor and unshakable presence, surprises even herself when she agrees to a dinner with Dominic Halston, a highly regarded cosmetic surgeon recently relocated from London. The village buzzes with whispers about their growing connection, though Kim dismisses them, asserting it's nothing serious. Her reluctance to define the relationship doesn't come from uncertainty, but calculation. She is aware of how perception works, and even more cautious of placing her trust in anyone too quickly. Dawn Fletcher, who has grown close to Kim in recent months, begins to notice subtle shifts. Kim seems more distracted, her eyes lingering a moment longer on her phone, a rare softness in her voice when Dominic's name comes up. Dawn is not convinced this change is harmless. There's something about Dominic that feels too smooth, too perfect. Her instincts, honed by a turbulent past, scream that something is off. Digging into Dominic's background proves more difficult than Dawn anticipates. His past is clean, almost suspiciously so. No known family ties, no social media presence, and a record that suggests constant relocation. Every move appears calculated, deliberate. The more she uncovers, the more certain Dawn becomes that Dominic is hiding something, and she is determined to find out what. The tension escalates when Kim, with an air of casual nonchalance, announces during a family dinner that she and Dominic are seeing each other more regularly. While she refrains from calling it a relationship, her guarded pride and the glint in her eye tell a different story. The table falls quiet. Even Jamie, used to his mother's stoic detachment, looks mildly unsettled. But it is Dawn who speaks first, gently probing about Dominic's intentions. Kim deflects, amused and slightly irritated. Her tone grows sharper when she senses judgment, making it clear that no one dictates her choices. But later, in private, she wonders if there might be some merit to Dawn's concern. Not enough to pull away, but enough to be cautious. Everything changes the day Celia Marsh arrives in the village. Celia, a rugged, outspoken farmer from the outskirts of North Yorkshire, storms into Emmerdale like a whirlwind. Within hours, she's at the Woolpack, demanding to speak with Kim. Her tone is clipped, her face taut with rage. The confrontation is explosive. In front of half the village, Celia accuses Kim of stealing her partner. Not just any man, but her husband of 15 years. The room falls into stunned silence. Kim, blindsided but unwilling to show weakness, calmly asks Celia to take the matter outside. What follows is a showdown behind the pub that becomes the talk of the village for days. Celia lays out her story. Dominic is not only her husband, but a man with a history of vanishing when things get complicated. She accuses him of serial deception, claiming he has ruined multiple women, financially and emotionally. Kim listens, impassive, though every word lands like a strike. She refuses to believe she has been manipulated so thoroughly. Yet the seeds of doubt are planted. That night, she confronts Dominic. He denies everything. He says Celia is a bitter ex, desperate to destroy his life out of spite. He claims they were separated long before he came to Emmerdale, and that her appearance is nothing but a theatrical ploy to humiliate him. His words are persuasive, his eyes sincere. Kim, for the moment, believes him, but not without reservation. Dawn isn't as easily convinced. She corners Celia, looking for proof. Celia is prepared. She produces old photographs, financial documents, and letters. But it's the handwritten anniversary card dated less than a year ago, that leaves no room for doubt. Dominic was still in contact with Celia. Possibly still involved. Dawn rushes to Kim with the evidence, expecting fury, heartbreak, maybe even a crack in Kim's unshakable exterior. But Kim is composed. Too composed. The following days bring a shift. Kim withdraws slightly, her movements more calculated, her conversations more clipped. She watches Dominic closely, testing him with subtle questions and watching for inconsistencies. What she sees disturbs her. Small lies. Contradictions. Excuses for phone calls taken in the other room. A sudden interest in her financial holdings. Behind the scenes, Kim begins her own investigation. She hires a private investigator to dig deeper into Dominic's past. The report that returns is damning. Multiple aliases. A fraud investigation in Surrey that never led to prosecution. Relationships left in chaos, always followed by his abrupt departure. A trail of emotional and financial manipulation. Kim doesn't confront him immediately. Instead, she plans. Dominic, unaware that the ground beneath him is crumbling, continues his charm offensive. He brings flowers to home farm, whispers sweet promises, suggests weekend trips to Scotland. He even talks about moving in. Kim smiles, nods, agrees. And then, she sets the trap. At a lavish dinner hosted at home farm, with Jamie, Dawn, Celia, invited personally by Kim, and even a few unsuspecting villagers in attendance, Kim raises her glass and makes a toast. She thanks everyone for coming. She praises love, second chances, and the wisdom of listening to friends. Then she turns to Dominic. "You almost had me," she says. The room stiffens. Dominic laughs nervously. "Kim, what are you talking about?" She lays out everything. The lies. The other women. The financial scams. The aliases. The damning evidence sits in a folder in her hand, which she tosses on the table. "You thought you could play me. But you forget, darling, I don't lose." Dominic stammers, tries to deny it, but the room has turned against him. Celia watches, arms crossed, vindicated. Dawn, silent, breathes a quiet sigh of relief. Jamie is stunned. Kim has won. But victory doesn't bring peace. Dominic vanishes that night. Not a word. His car is gone by morning. The police are alerted, but he leaves no trace. What he doesn't know is that Kim has already locked down every possible avenue he might have used to escape with her money or damage her reputation. Still, something gnaws at her. She underestimated him once. She won't do it again. And deep in her gut, she knows this isn't the last time she'll hear his name. The days that followed Dominic's arrest were heavy with tension. Kim, though victorious, knew better than to relax. Her instincts, sharpened by years of manipulation and survival, told her that the worst was yet to come. Dominic's confession about the syndicate had opened a door to something far more dangerous than personal betrayal, a coordinated criminal operation that had embedded itself quietly into society's underbelly. Dawn took charge of organizing files and evidence the task force had gathered. With the help of the retired detective, Alistair, they began compiling links between Dominic's aliases and known shell companies. They found patterns in clinic records, falsified prescriptions, and forged digital identities that crossed regional lines. It was systematic, and clearly not the work of one man. They needed to act fast, but smart. Kim, on the other hand, started playing a more political game. Her resources were vast, and she began making quiet calls to influential figures. Some favors she hadn't called in for years. A whisper here, a nudge there, enough to get eyes turned toward the larger threat. But with more exposure came more danger. Celia received the first warning. A dead crow pinned to her door with a surgical scalpel. Crude. Brutal. Effective. She called Kim immediately. The old instincts in both women kicked in, and Kim sent security to watch Celia's farm overnight. Dawn was next. Her car's brake lines were cut, discovered only when the mechanic noted something off during a routine check. They were being hunted now. Kim refused to be a passive target. She pushed forward, convinced that visibility was protection. The more public they were, the harder it would be for the syndicate to act in shadows. She gave an exclusive interview to a national paper, carefully worded but undeniably pointed. She named Dominic. She hinted at corruption. She positioned herself as a whistleblower, a woman fighting for justice. The story exploded. Reporters flooded Emmerdale. News vans, cameras, microphones. The village became a media circus. While some residents grumbled about the chaos, many rallied around Kim, Dawn, and even Celia. The mood was shifting. The danger felt real. Then came the break they needed. One of Alistair's old contacts in the Metropolitan Police quietly passed along a file, a list of transactions linked to a covert clinic in Leeds. The account was in the name of Celia Marsh. A clear attempt to frame her. But the real gift was the signature, not hers, but a digital replica traced back to a man named Felix Maries. A name neither Dawn nor Kim had heard before. But Celia had. He was Dominic's business partner, she said. I met him once. Slick. Cold. Like a banker who enjoys delivering bad news. Felix became their next target. Finding him would be harder, he had no social presence, and his records were buried under layers of corporate obfuscation. But they knew where to start. The Leeds clinic. Kim arranged a visit under a pseudonym, with Dawn playing her assistant. They posed as investors looking to replicate the business model. The staff were suspicious but cooperative. And while the official tour revealed nothing, Dawn slipped away long enough to access a back room, a record storage unit. What she found stunned her: files for dozens of patients, none of whom had ever actually visited the clinic. Paperwork suggested a billing scam. But the implications were darker. Identities stolen, treatments billed to the NHS and private insurers, with money rerouted to overseas accounts. Kim had seen enough. Back at home farm, they began preparing the next phase, exposure. Celia volunteered to go public with her story. She sat down with a journalist from ITV, detailing how Dominic and Felix ran a scam under the guise of wellness and beauty clinics. She spoke of the mental torment, the gaslighting, the financial ruin. And she didn't break. It was the turning point. The syndicate responded. Kim's email was hacked, with confidential business plans leaked. Online trolls flooded her social media, accusing her of fabricating everything for publicity. Dawn received threatening messages. Celia's barn was burned to the ground. But it was too late. The media had latched onto the story. Politicians began asking questions in Parliament. Activists took up the cause. Kim's private investigator traced Felix to a property in Manchester, a penthouse guarded by private security. They couldn't touch him directly, but the walls were closing in. Then came the most chilling move yet. At home farm, Kim returned from a late-night strategy session to find a message scrawled on her bathroom mirror, in red lipstick. Tick-tock. It was no longer just about identity theft or fraud. It was personal. Dawn begged Kim to leave the estate for a few days, but Kim refused. If I run, they win, she said. And I don't run. Celia suggested a counter-strike. They had enough now. Records, testimonies, motive. What they needed was to force the syndicate into a mistake. So they made a move that risked everything. Kim held a live press conference on the estate, flanked by Celia and Dawn. She presented documents, timelines, and a chilling picture of the syndicate's reach. She publicly called out Felix marries. The boldness of it turned the media into a frenzy. And Felix responded. 2 nights later, Kim's security cameras caught masked men attempting to break into home farm. They were armed. The alarm system triggered, and police arrived within minutes, arresting both intruders. They carried burner phones, one of which contained messages from Felix's known burner number. That was the final piece. With mounting evidence and pressure from the public, law enforcement launched a joint task force. Raids across Leeds, Manchester, and York brought down clinics, shell companies, and finally, Felix marries himself. When he was dragged from his penthouse, cameras captured every second. Emmerdale exhaled. Kim, now vindicated but exhausted, stood at her study window days later, watching the fields sway in the wind. Dawn entered quietly, handing her a cup of tea. Celia followed, arms crossed, but eyes softer than before. You could write a book, Dawn joked. Or burn one, Kim said dryly. The 3 women stood in silence. Not everything was over. Healing never was. But the threat had passed. Justice, for now, had prevailed. And Kim Tate. She remained standing, as always.